Our next movie is Scooby-Doo 2, or as it will certainly be titled in France, Scooby-Doo Doo. And I've got to admit, I was not looking forward to seeing this film. In fact, you know, Richard, this is funny. I had the uncanniest feeling that I'd actually reviewed it before, right here on this very same show.
This is my introduction to the entire genre, and I hope it's the end of my exposure to this genre, because I'm completely unmoved by this film.
There was no reason to make this movie.
I don't understand it. I didn't get it. It wasn't funny. I didn't like it, and that's it.
Yeah, that was kind of a nightmarish memory. I guess maybe we didn't like Scooby-Doo very much, but
a terrible movie. The laughs aren't there. The stunts are stupid. There's no plot whatsoever.
There you go. Okay.
And I just rue the day we're going to have Scooby-Doo 3.
Next
okay?
movie. Next
All
movie.
right.
There is so much wrong with Till There Was You. The slapstick, the restaurant, the many different couplings of the characters. Sarah Jessica Parker looks awful, downright haggard in this film. The only attractive element in the picture, the old apartment building. It's pretty. It does deserve to be saved, and obviously was, or they couldn't have filmed this movie there.
Didn't it strike you as strange that although the building was built by the mentor of the hero architect, he didn't know that that was her building? He would have known his own teacher's most famous building there in town. The casting director should be fired for having cast this picture. Now, I know that because some of these people are stars on television, I presume that there are some people who will be able to tell them apart, but I kept thinking, is this the professor, or is it the architect, or is it some other guy who is this guy? Is that the relationship? Is this the guy she knew then, and this is the guy she knows now, or are they each other?
All right, why don't we fess up, Roger, because you and I, we never talk when we see movies.
No,
We're seated in a screening room that seats 49 people.
That's right.
We sit there, we don't talk to each other.
That's
nothing.
right, yes.
What do we do in this film that we've never done before?
We kept asking each other, who's that? I had no idea. I'm taking notes during this movie. I'm trying to remember, is that the guy she met as a child?
And how soon did we start asking each other questions?
Right away, because
within the first 10 minutes,
I was totally disoriented during half of the movie. Our first movie is an unholy mess named Battlefield Earth. Let's not beat around the bush. This is one of the ugliest and most incomprehensible movies I've ever seen. It's like spending 2 hours in the intergalactic town dump with a lot of people who need a bath and a trip to the dentist. The movie stars John Travolta in a role that obscures and wastes his talent as a creature named Turl, security chief of the alien Cyclos. Barry Pepper plays Johnny Good Boy Tyler, the heroic leader of the humans who've been almost wiped out, maybe because they make inexplicable and dumb decisions like this one.
Surely someone as wise as you has ways to stop me from shooting. I know that if I had tried, you would have killed me first.
Damn right, rat brain. That's the first intelligent thing you've said yet.
There's just no joy in Battlefield Earth. This movie is not fun. I think, although I'm not sure, that the movie thinks the extreme stupidity of Turl is amusing. I mean, here's one of the leaders of a conquering race, and he doesn't even know what kind of food humans eat. Travolta is a charming actor, but not here, not as Turl, hiding behind a sneer, a lot of hair, and those weird nose tubes.
They have those tubes because their careers are going to be on life support if they keep doing movies like this. Remember the Commodores, Lionel Richie and those guys? That's what Travolta's dressed like. Now, they're supposed to be like 9 feet tall, but really, they just have really big boots, so they have to walk kind of slowly. It doesn't matter. Why do they look like that? It's got nothing to do with the story. Nothing's consistent in this story. Sometimes people are smart, sometimes they're stupid. Sometimes they can figure things out, sometimes they can't.
But no matter which it is, it's always unpleasant to look at.
All the technology and all the money and all the star power in the world, and you've got one of the ugliest, most depressing, dank movies we've ever seen.
It's just everything looks like it has a fungus growing on it.
Truly awful, truly awful.
I've heard of a lot of stupid movie titles in my time. Sidelong Glances of a Pigeon Kicker is one of my personal favorites, back from 1969, I think. But here's a beauty, Benji the Hunted. You'd think this was an Edward G. Robinson or maybe today an Arnold Schwarzenegger film rather than the adventures of a cute little dog lost in the wilderness. Benji the Hunted, indeed. Benji the dog and Benji the movie, Benji the Hunted, exhausted me. This is the first time I wanted to tell a dog to slow down and stop to smell the flowers. I can't recommend Benji the Hunted.
Well, there is a little suspense in the movie, like, for example, will Benji be able to protect those cougar cubs until they get big enough to eat him? But I don't know, Gene. Your review is the typical sort of blasé, sophisticated, cynical review.
I'll take the word sophisticated.
Our first movie is Biker Boys, and it's a two-wheeled version of The Fast and the Furious. That is not a good thing. It just means it's loud, stupid, and pointless, but the cliched characters pop wheelies this time around. Derek Luke from Antoine Fisher plays the kid. He's known as kid who thinks he can smoke smoke. Fresh from his triumphant role in Joe Dirt, Kid Rock plays dog who's always dogging smoke. I howled when the bikers held a charity car wash for literacy, not to mention they have an annual dance. Are these guys street bikers or Rotarians? As for the race sequences, we get far too many close-ups of the bikes or really long shots where we can barely tell who's winning. And for all the talk about traffic problems in Southern California, these wheelheads sure have an easy time finding long stretches of open road. Biker Boyz is just a silly film.
That it is. Of course, you're wondering why they're not a little more hard-boiled. These are basically Rotarians, and that's why the movie is rated PG-13.
Yeah.
Because their language is so clean. These are basically very affluent people who need a lot of money to maintain these machines and hire mechanics to take care of them for them. But I agree with you that races, it seems like the crowds all want to stand around the starting line. Yeah. So then they race off across this field, and then when they get to the finish line,
there's nobody there.
Yeah, the Smoke and Kid can have a long conversation while the crowd catches up with them.
I mean, in a movie like this, it's got to be about the racing sequences, and they're just not well staged and well executed.
No, you see two motorcycles going past, and generally there's one a little bit in the lead, and then the other one's a little bit more in the lead.
And then the other guy just goes, and makes it go really fast, and then he wins.
You're right.
Shining through goes wrong is when Griffith, the daughter of a Jewish father, decides she wants to spy on the Nazis too. Some corny dialogue here.
I want you to taste my strudel, the way my grandmother taught me to make it, and my apple compote. She taught me to cook German style, the way my grandfather likes it. And I could cook for 50 if I had to. 5 courses, the way they do it in Berlin. And on nights when they didn't have people over, I could bring tea and strudel up to the Drescher's study and put a little schnapps in the tea so that Horst and Hedda would get tired and could retire early, and I could be left alone in the study to clean up.
That try my strudel line is really kind of silly. The problem is, it doesn't work anymore, I don't think, to make a melodrama about World War II in general and the Nazis in particular. We know too much about that era. A movie without some real bite on those subjects can really come across as trivial.
You know, I kept trying to tell myself it was only a movie and I should try to enjoy it and suspend my disbelief a little bit. But how many, just as a general question, Gene, I don't know if you have an answer for this or not, how many times do you think an English-speaking spy could go into Nazi Germany and come out again by the ploy of pulling out a card saying, wounded war veteran, can't speak, and pointing at a blood-stained bandage around his throat? Yeah. How many times do you think that would work before somebody would catch you?
When a movie is based on a video game and is directed by a guy who calls himself Chaos, it's a pretty fair bet that it won't be mining merchant ivory territory. X vs. Sever is a cynical exercise that uses the old child in danger plot to manufacture audience sympathy, but couldn't care less about any of its characters. It's all about stunts and chase sequences and blowing things up and setting things on fire. Who cares?
I'd like to be the first to say, or maybe the second to say, that I didn't care. I hated this movie. But on the other hand, the title is not only bad but inaccurate, because for most of the movie it's not X versus Sever, but X and Sever versus the bad guy.
Yeah.
And think about this. Usually Canadian cities double for American cities. But in this movie, Vancouver is identified as Vancouver.
Yeah.
Yet the battle is between the FBI and the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is an actual U.S. government agency, and they're using rocket launchers, grenades, plastic explosions, machine guns. Dozens of people are dead. Blood is running in the gutters. Are the Canadians going to say, hey, why don't you go home and fight each other in an American city?
Well,
isn't there some kind of jurisdictional problem?
But here you are applying logic to a film that defies it, and I can say at least that no Mounties were harmed in the making of this movie. So
it is unusually bad.
Yes, it is. That's a good way of putting it.
Our next movie is number 6 in the seemingly endless series of Police Academy movies. This one, number 6, subtitled City Under Siege. And you know, it's never too late to learn on this job, Gene. If we thought the first Police Academy movie was kind of dumb, we hadn't seen anything yet.
I thought it was very dumb.
Very dumb. None of them are as good as Abbott and Costello, but they're kind of on the level of the Bowery Boys. And one footnote that we have to put in here. On this show, we have constantly over the years referred to the fruit cart scene, the obligatory scene in a chase where the car races onto the sidewalk and knocks over a fruit stand and races away, and the fruit vendor is shaking his head at the departing car. In this scene, there is a tribute to our criticism. There's Gene and Roger's fruit stand, and the big, enormous, big foot truck with the 20-foot wheels does not run over it. And for that, I suppose we're supposed to be grateful, but you know, I'm not really that grateful. I don't know how you feel. But
I wasn't grateful. I mean, it was amusing, but that's about the only smile I had in the whole film.